like to begin by saying that since we're starting quite significantly late for a 50-minute presentation, we will kind of amend it, and so you're going to get a slightly abbreviated version, but we have a little wiggle room built in. So Julie and I are very excited to be here today to talk about this topic because this session gets to focus on the positive side of things when it comes to bullying. This session gets to focus on how can I be an ally? How can I effectively speak up against bullying? And this, it applies to bullying, but it isn't necessarily specifically about bullying. It can be about any sort of inappropriate comments that you experience, and these are just some helpful tips on how to go through that. So we will go ahead and get going. All right. So the goal today for this workshop is just to give you a little bit of guidance to help you use your voice effectively to address the issues of disrespect. This can obviously apply to bullying or just disrespectful circumstances in general. And what we're going to focus on are how and why. Okay, those are going to be the two things that we highlight today. The why is by understanding the high cost of silent collusion. And we'll provide a definition so we can all start on the same page. And exploring the power of a bystander. There's something very special about stepping in for someone else. Obviously, we would like victims to be empowered to stand up for themselves, but there's a very strong impact by a bully, or by an ally who steps in and says, this isn't acceptable, this bullying is not okay. And to enhance the skills necessary to become an effective ally, so just give a couple of simple, direct tips on how you can do that. All right, so the agenda is going to be, obviously you can read, but we're doing the overview right now. There are some key concepts. As I said, we're just going to have some definitions to begin with so we can all start on the same page. And we're going to watch the Out Your Silence Hurts branded video. This is a very popular training series that we did not develop ourselves, but that we use and amend to help to kind of spread that word. There will be a discussion in pairs. We'll give you some ally skills. Then you'll do a small group activity, and we'll complete the day. Some of those may be, as I had said, amended a little bit. Okay, so I've already briefly mentioned silent collusion. Okay? Silent collusion is going along with something by remaining silent. Okay? Being silent is not inaction. Being silent makes a very strong statement. It makes a statement to the victim, and it makes a statement to the bully. And we will get into that a little bit more. Okay? Silence is not truly a lack of a statement. A bystander is a person who's present but not involved. So that would be a chance spectator or an onlooker. Okay? So you're a witness of the situation. Okay? A passive bystander is someone who witnesses this situation, which requires some sort of positive action. We don't use positive to mean good, right? We mean positive to mean you have to do something. And then instead of doing that, does nothing. That's a passive bystander. You want to avoid that, of course. And a proactive ally is what we're going to try to help everyone work toward. And that is a person who witnesses a negative situation which requires action, and they do take that action. And as we said, the impact that can have on the person who is being victimized is very great. Some of the skills that are highlighted in this video are asking a question. All right, this seems like something that's very obvious, and we could do that, but we don't ever think sometimes about how we can use that to seek clarification, to make them say it again. All right, so if someone says something rude, just say, what do you mean by that, right? Or how do you think that would make that person feel? As an ally, you can say that. Another one is appealing to empathy. So if you're trying to appeal to empathy, you're going to try to make them relate that to someone in their own life or to themselves, right? A part of this, Julie and I are both in human resources. We're both in training and development. And so we typically are addressing these sorts of things to the employee side of things, right? So it would be speaking up to a coworker. And that certainly applies, speaking up to a peer, speaking up to a family member. But it's certainly, how many in here are teachers, if I may ask? That's what I thought. It's certainly incredibly important for teachers as well, because teacher allies are coming from a place of authority. And when teachers see something happening and fail to step in, then that authority, as Dr. Bean was saying in his, is not being used to the extent that it needs to be. That needs to be addressed. But this, typically, a lot of these methods are referring to a person who is coming from a place of good intent. We do training on how to address stereotypical language as well, and often it's ignorance. Now, in the case of bullies, we can't say they have good intent, right? Bullying is pervasive, it's persistent, it's ongoing for a long period of time. So that positive intent is really not there. Still, these skills can be used on them. Appealing to empathy is probably not going to be a way you're going to want to best address a bully. Interrupting and redirecting, however, can be. Okay? That very much can be. So if they make a statement that's inappropriate, stop the statement and redirect the conversation to a more appropriate means. Also, making it individual and making it personal. Let that individual who's making the offending statement or who's making the bullying statement know how that impacts you personally. That someone you know is going to be wounded by their comment. At the very least, if that person has respect for you, they won't make that kind of comment around you. And maybe that'll trigger a conversation. Oftentimes, people behave in a way that they get away with behaving, right? If no one calls them out and says, that's not okay, I'm not okay with that, then they think everyone's okay with that, right? So being a proactive ally is being okay with being the person who steps up and says, I'm not okay with that. And what you'll find, in fact, is that most of the time, there are going to be people right behind you saying, wait, I'm not okay with that either. I just didn't know how to say it. I didn't know how to let that person know. So more often than not, you're going to get people who are inspired by you standing up, by you saying, that's not okay. And as we know, with bullying, bystander intervention is so incredibly important. Being a proactive ally is so incredibly important. If you don't mind looking in your handouts, there is a discussion, Ouch, Your Silence Hurts discussion, and you'll see some questions on there. When have you been a passive bystander? What can you do to become a proactive ally? What impact does being a proactive ally have on bullies and the individuals who are victims? And why is it so important for those in authority positions to speak up? If you could just turn to the person next to you, just in pairs, or if there's an odd number in 3, and quickly, in say 5 minutes, try to come up with some answers, and we'll reconnect and see some of the ideas that you have, some of the experiences that you've had. You can share your wealth of knowledge with each other. Okay? Go on, you're not going to bite each other. We're all friends here. We're off the grid now, babe.
But when I start.
right. It sounds like you're having some great conversations with each other. But in the interest of time, let's come back together and hear some of your answers and share what your knowledge with each other. So would anyone share when you have been or seen a passive bystander? Anyone have an example they'd be willing to share? No? Okay, what causes people? Oh.
Well, when I wasn't a teacher before, when I first, experienced in the classroom, when kids would say, "Oh, you're so gay," or "You're such a retard."
Mm-hmm.
And at first, I was like, I was kind of taken off guard and didn't know how to respond to it. And then,
Sure.
then I, that's not okay.
Good. And thank you for sharing that because the next question I was going to ask is, what are some things that cause people? I mean, passive bystanders aren't bad people, right? And they're not people who don't care. So what are things that cause us to be a passive bystander? Fear.
Is the main thing. Also, quite honestly, self-interest.
Oh, absolutely. Right? Yes, thank you.
You're surprised sometimes that you're going through the middle of the day and something happens. It's like, wait, what just happened? Like, it's part of that shock. You're not sitting there waiting for someone to do something, so it just happens. And you're like,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think going along with that would be uncomfortability.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't really know how to react to a situation, you haven't thought about that as a possibility, that's going to affect how you react.
Absolutely. Okay. Yes, thank you.
Maybe we feel like we should mind our own business and we're afraid to get involved.
Definitely. Right. So for all of these reasons, not feeling equipped to address the situation, being completely taken aback, thinking it's not our place. How about thinking someone else is going to do it? Does that ever come into a play? They say that if you're ever in a large group and someone, let's say, has a heart attack, that what can happen is that people will say, call 911, and everyone thinks that everyone else is calling 911 because everyone has a cell phone, right? And what happens is that no one does. So in that situation, the best thing to do is say, you, call 911, and you'll do it, right? It's not that no one wants to. It's not that there's any hesitation about it. It's just that someone else is doing it. So if you take one thing from this today, I strongly encourage you to be someone. Know that you are someone, all right? Because that's the only way to make sure that someone addresses it. Just be someone. I'm someone. My voice is someone, right? Okay, very good. Thank you. So what can you do to be a proactive ally? We learned what might prevent us from speaking up, and they're very valid, right? So what are things we can do? Empower each other. Yes.
I was talking to Kelly about whenever I was growing up in grade school, then there was a class of special education students that were also going to Lincoln Grade School. So when they would come out on the playground, then people would start to make fun of them.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say, no, we're not going to do that. They're somebody's brothers and sisters. And we'd hand them chalk, play hopscotch or jump rope, and we would play with them. So after I said something, everyone else would too.
Awesome. Very good. And that's using that strategy of appealing to empathy, right? Appealing to that personal side of them. And making it personal. You have a brother, you have a sister. How would you like that? Oh, I thought I saw your hand. All right. Anyone else? Skills for speaking up? Thank you.
I don't feel that you should be a hero.
Okay.
Heroes are not sometimes die.
Okay.
I think you need to be cautious of what you do and say.
Absolutely.
But we, especially around this surrounding, know when to speak up, know when to make that move, because sometimes being bold,
Mm-hmm.
courageous is not always the best thing. It could be at the wrong time.
I think that's a very fair point to make, right? We have to make sure that we're physically safe. And sometimes we have to think about things like losing our jobs, right? That's unfortunate but true. So we have to know who we are as people and be okay with that. And I think that's a very good thing to say. But when we can stand up, when we are safe, when we do feel, comfortable doing that, we definitely should. Yes, ma'am.
Going off of that, maybe it's not always, if you don't feel comfortable speaking to the bully, then speak to the person who's getting bullied, because it's important to appeal to them and let them know that
Thank you. That is very important, right? Even if it has to be quiet, say, I hope you don't think that I was okay with that. I'm not. I'm with you, right? Yeah, in the back.
You don't know, like a lot of times you walk up on it and you're not sure who began it, started it, and he's saying, what you guys are doing is making me uncomfortable. And I don't like how this makes me feel.
Very good. So not assigning blame, just saying this situation isn't okay. And it does. I mean, it looks like that. I was a high school teacher for a number of years before this. And sometimes when a bully starts things, they're also very smart about it. So by the time you walk up on it, it can look like the bullied person is the one who's causing the problem, right? And so not assigning that blame and waiting and seeing how things truly unfold, that's a very good point. And that's simple. This makes me uncomfortable. It needs to stop. Good. Anyone else?
And kind of back to your comment here, which is great. If you do feel threatened, if you do feel that it's not the best physical or any kind of threat, what could you do? What's another step you could take past that?
You can be bold, you can stand by that person.
Right.
You must be a helper to one another.
Sure.
And even though it may sometimes take our own lives, that is a sacrifice that no one wants, but it does happen.
Sure. And there is that, kind of like what Anita said as well, putting words out, at least talk to the person, the person being bullied, but you can also at least let somebody in authority know, whether it's the police, whether it's the principal, whether it's another teacher, or whatever be the case in your work setting or your social setting. But the fact that something is said or done is helpful too.
Absolutely.
One other thing, I really appreciate our colleague's point about the hero piece. I think it's extremely important, instead of acting out of emotion, that we act out of, from a place of competence and develop a plan and a strategy instead of individual behaviors. There are so many resources that we have that we can utilize. Even if we simply start with EAP, if we start with law enforcement, but there are people that, especially as adult professionals in a workplace, you start with a plan and strategy instead of an individual behavior.
Sure. Very good. That is a very good point. And learning those strategies and giving yourself an intellectual base so that when the emotional situation comes, you have that to fall back on and you're not just kicking it right into gear. Absolutely. And that's what we're all doing here, right, at this bullying conference.
For negative responses, we plan for retaliation in a strategy and in a plan. It's
That's
not
right.
a surprise.
That's right. That's right. So you can be on a level above the person you're dealing with. Yes.
Also kind of have phrases in mind that are not unprovoked. So, having your neutral I statement as opposed to an aggressive, you're such a bully. And why are you saying that is never, I just, that's not a good thing. Or not, so just having a neutral thing.
Absolutely.
Planned in your brain, ready for it.
Very much so. Like, this situation is making me uncomfortable, right? I'm owning it, your behavior, but I'm not even saying you're doing this. I think that's really good. All right. So I'm going to skip down. What does being silent tell the bully or the offender? If I'm a silent bystander, what have I just told them?
My grandmother said, silence gives consent.
Silence is consent, okay? In that sort of a situation, I'm telling you, as the bully, as the offender, as the harasser, that I just agreed with you. Why would they think otherwise, right? So, you have to understand the impact of the silence, okay? You're agreeing by being silent. That's what others are seeing. That's what the bully is seeing. Who else is seeing that agreement? The offended party, okay? So you are on team bully if you don't say, I'm not okay with that. Now, situations may arise where you are not okay to stand up and step up, and you have to know that, what's right for yourself. But that is the cost of it, and that's the reality, right? Silent collusion is telling the offender that I agree and the offended that I agree, right? And like she said, in a situation where you can't say something publicly, tell them privately. I think that was a great point. Thank you. All right.
Okay. I gotta kind of stand close to her because she has the mic and yell. One of the things that the video talked about, it had several scenarios that we'll take a look at. But the scenarios dealt with different aspects of being bullied. And so the video, you're going to get me. But one of the main points of the video is one voice. It just takes one voice to change things for anybody. And so that one voice also accumulates other voices to come in that. Because I think it was mentioned here a minute ago, once one starts, once one starts, the others join in. I think Georgia, said it. And so that's very true. So once we can get that, that's great. So that's the point of the video as well. But there was a scenario in today's meeting, we were discussing who should be promoted to assistant manager. When Kendall's name was brought up, one of the directors said, "Is that the image that you want for a manager? We need someone, Kendall's name was dropped from the conversation. I felt bad for her. She's really talented, very driven. She's like the glue that holds her project team together. Who cares about the rest?" Okay, then it goes to Kendall. Who Kendall could be, you name it. Anything. It could be race, it could be a stature, it could be a disability. So whoever Kendall might be. As Kendall was saying, when I heard I wasn't considered for promotion because of my so-called image, I was pretty angry. I've been working towards this promotion for a while. It wasn't the meeting to defend I wasn't at the meeting to defend myself, and no one spoke up for me. Nobody. Makes me wonder if I have a future here. Okay? So, in those instances, well, let's pull this up. I'll just do it. Okay. So, instead of kind of working in groups, we kind of just do it all together here. So what is happening? What's happening in that scenario? Is it stereotype? Is it labeling? Is it, what might it be?
Is it when someone's being judged by their appearance?
Okay. Having judgment and assumptions. Anything else?
The focus is away from her talent as an individual.
Exactly.
Which is really what they're looking for.
Right. So the job is focused on an image, not a talent that should be there. What's the impact in that situation of silent collusion if you know what you said? I'm sorry? Agreement? Yeah. What else could be an impact?
What has it cost Kendall?
Lowered self-esteem. And also just wondering if her job's in jeopardy or if she even wants to work there anymore.
Exactly. Exactly. She's pretty much, shut down or quit in here. She may leave, or she may quit in here and stay. That would not be good either. So that's the impact. Using those techniques, and they're on the top part of on your other side, like the ask a question, appeal to empathy, those type of things. How could you demonstrate something in there? How could you speak about this? What could you say? If you were that person sitting in that meeting, what could you say?
Interrupt and redirect.
Okay.
Give her positive trait.
Right, interrupt and redirect to the positive traits. It's like, now, Kendall is very productive. She does this, she does that, she does that. Why are we not, ask, redirect? And, bring it out, but then redirect it.
You could also ask what they mean by your image, and make them say what they mean, counter that when you're doing your image.
You bet. A lot of times people say things, and again, they don't necessarily think. So having people hear it again, kind of, oh, yeah, that didn't sound too good. Or, that's not what I meant. This is what I meant. Georgia?
We'll ask individual people what they don't like about her, and then what they do like about her. And maybe they'll see there's more that they do like than they don't like.
Or just ask, what is it exactly we're looking for in a manager?
Right.
What skills are we doing?
What's the goal here? You know, what's our purpose?
Don't we have to address discrimination?
Sure.
We have to address it first before you even outline what she has to offer. In a workplace, there are all types of opinions, and everyone has a right to it. So, but you must clarify, first of all, what discrimination is before you even get started. And then you can try to work through it.
That's good. Definitely. 'Cause that would definitely set you up for that. Go ahead.
One way to frame that so that it doesn't become accusatory or anything, we could talk about the concept of bias. And we could utilize your concept and yours together and say, okay, what are our biases in terms of what we want? What are our biases in terms of what we don't want?
Awesome.
And let's talk about how people that are potential match up to these things that we have collectively identified. So when you talk about bias, all of us have both positive, constructive, when you reframe that, constructive and negative bias. You can really frame that in a neutral palette that gets to both what both of you are saying.
Good. Thank you. Any other thoughts on that? All right. Thank you very much. Okay, the second scenario. Today, one of the other servers was rude to this older African-American couple. Even though they got there first, she served them last. She didn't talk with them or check on them like she did the other tables. You could tell it upset them, and they didn't leave a tip. Afterward, my coworker said, "Black people are the worst tippers. I hate serving them." I feel horrible. I would never treat people like that, but I didn't think it was my place to say anything. I'm new here. Okay, what's happening? What name it? What is happening here?
Discrimination.
Stereotyping. Any other things? Silent collusion. She's not saying anything. And just poor customer service. You know, that's a I keep getting far away from you, I'm sorry. Sorry. That's a reflection on the company as well. You know, and that's something that needs to be addressed. What's the impact of silent collusion, of her not saying anything? What's the impact on that? People didn't get served well. And future people aren't going to get served well.
Those couples being discriminated against, they would probably be told by friends how treated her or her business.
You bet. You bet. Keep them real hot. Any others? What about an impact for the server that was rude if she doesn't say anything?
She'll continue to treat other people that way.
She'll continue. And thinking it's okay to do that.
Would it have been possible for that person to go and serve the people, realizing that instead of just waiting and not letting them be served?
You bet.
Unless they were in like a certain section where they were supposed to serve people, certain people, but she could have just gone over and said, "May I help you?"
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like with the next one demonstrated. What could they have done? One of the good things is another server could have gone over and just at least talked to them, maybe fill their water if it there's always something you can do, not to the offender, like we said before, to the offended as well. Because they need to know, again, that someone is on their side for this.
And what about management?
Yeah.
They probably need to know that this is happening, right?
What's some other things that could have been used? What about appeal to empathy? How could you use that? Could you? Mm-hmm.
Talk about like what if those people were your parents or going somewhere else that they got treated wrong? How would that make you feel? How would that affect you?
Sure. How would you feel?
We could certainly use it as a teachable moment to talk about generalizations versus stereotypes and how I understand that this has happened to you a number of times. I get that. However, each individual that comes in here is a customer that merits whatever it is that the company's philosophy is. And maybe just again, a teachable moment around what generalization is relative to a stereotype.
Right.
And in this particular situation, with the tipping, this individual is creating a situation in which she's validating her own faulty opinion, right?
Exactly.
Are you going to tip well if you get poor service? Because I'm not.
No way.
So then she's going to continue saying, see? So it has to be addressed to stop that cycle.
Any other thoughts on that? Okay, the third one. One day I was with my friends. We stopped at a convenience store after work to get something to drink. We were standing by the car when a man, a Mexican guy, drove up. He got out of his car and he smiled. That's when I heard one of my friends say, "Hey, looks like you're on the wrong side of the Rio Grande. Now, what are we going to do about that?" At the exact moment he said that, the man's kids got out of the car. The man just grabbed his kids, put them in the cart, and drove off. Everybody started laughing. I should have said something, but I didn't. What's happening here? Discrimination. What else?
Being silent.
Yeah, silenciation. Intimidation. What about assumptions? Assumptions that they were Mexican, and just again, that stereotyping, that assumption, the generalizing. Could they have perceived that a threat? Could have been an implied threat? Very much so. Very much so. Okay. What's the impact of silent collusion in that aspect? By not saying anything, what's the impact? Exactly.
Made the person feel not accepted, made them feel like they had to leave.
Okay, right. Right. So instead of confronting it, the man is thinking, let's just leave, which is probably an inconvenience to them, to what they were having to do. So yeah, impacted that. What else?
Should they have stood up? That is the question. It is culture. Culture is a very big deal. We don't want to identify with it, but it's real. We all are raised differently. We're differently, we think differently, and we do differently. So I must say, okay, he did the right thing. He got his children, he put them in safety, he put them in the car, and he drove off. I don't think that's fear, I think that's smartness, because he protected his family, because he don't know what's going to happen, and when, and how. So, because of cultures and the way we think and live, that's just life. I'm sorry, life.
Well, that was, like you said, that was very important to note that because he left, that was probably the best thing for him. And to sit there and we talked about that earlier. When are some situations when you don't necessarily, feel like it's safe to do so? And that was one of those situations. He could have probably said something, but you don't know. You've got several guys standing there. You don't know what they're going to do, what you're doing. But for the silent person that was in what could they have done?
The company, but by them not saying anything, making it look like they were included on their side.
You bet. So what could they have said?
Some people, have that friend within their circle or coworker that you maybe call a friend but it's kind of an acquaintance. It tends to say things off the cuff without thinking.
Sure.
And when they're silent, they don't risk losing this friendship and this group that they feel like they want to belong in. Sometimes if somebody is doing that, they think they're being quote unquote cool. And by you not saying anything, you're letting them continue doing things that cause you to be included when we're in this group. So you kind of, and I don't like to either because I'm kind of shy-ish, but sometimes you have to know when you have to do something.
Right. And so you could have basically said, or that gentleman could have said, hey man, that's not cool, you know? Will it always change will they just automatically get a revelation and say, oh yeah, I shouldn't have done that? Sometimes not. But the point is, what? That you've said something. What's the point?
If you said something that
Right.
you tried,
Right.
no matter the outcome, you can feel safe with yourself.
And if not the bully themselves, those around them, you may have got to them.
They weren't exactly silent because it said everyone started laughing. So one thing was you could not laugh with the other people. You could say, well, think how you would feel if you were that person.
Yeah, apply to their empathy. You know, hey man, you have kids. You know, you have kids with them. Come on. You know, things like that.
And this is a very real example of a time when a proactive ally was needed in this situation, because I agree completely. There's an implied threat in that comment, whether it was supposed to be silly or not. I find nothing silly about that. There was an implied threat, so I agree absolutely that the man and his children should have left. That's the kind of situation where the offended individual would not want to stand up and say something. I completely agree with that. But it's also the kind of situation where it really shows the value of what a proactive ally can add to the situation. The friend of these people really missed the point by not saying something, right? That's this example when we're going through this one always is shocking me. This unsolicited harassment and intimidation of people on the street. I always find it quite horrifying in this when we come to it. And try to put myself in that situation. How would I not say something in that situation? How many of you kind of see that in this example? Like, I don't know how if I could stand by and let a person on the street just harass someone. But again, that safety is an issue. What kind of person am I dealing with who would make this threat unsolicited on people getting out of their car, right? So it's good to know the value of proactive ally, but knowing when and how is also good.